Everybody and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to continue with where we left off. We are going to polish our image, we're going to add some depth, and we're also going to grade our photo, or this is what we call the pre-grade, and I'm going to export it back to Lightroom for the finishing touches. So what I like to do here after doing my dodging and burning is to add a curves adjustment layer and bump it up from the center here, or the midtones area a little bit up. This is going to increase the overall exposure in the midtone areas whilst having our blacks and our whites clipped in here. So we're not going to really affect anything in the top whites, and we're not going to affect anything in the blacks over here. Okay, with that done, it's affecting everything. So this is where I'll come inside and use blended option to actually limit where it is affecting. So I'll go to my underline layer here and just move this slider all together until I can see it subtracting it from the shadow areas. Okay, so with something like this, I'm going to hold down Alt and hit this button, and it's going to split it into two, and it's going to give us a smooth transition from the shadows into our highlights. And this is what I want to be able to maintain. I'm cutting off all of these exposure we added using our curves layer from our shadows so that it can smoothly transition from that into the highlights. Now this curve adjustment is only going to affect the highlighted areas. Okay, so when I switch it off and on and we zoom in a bit, especially the forehead and the cheek right here and the nose and anywhere that is more bright, you're going to see that it has been the brightness there has been increased. Back, have you seen that? Good. So with that, I'm going to leave it here and I'm going to stamp my layers to the top. To do that, we hold down Command Option Shift E, or if you're on Windows, it's Control Alt Shift and E, and now it's going to stamp everything to the top. We have a new layer. Then I go inside and I run this action to sharpen the image. Indirectly, if you look at these two layers, they look very familiar. They're more or less like frequency separation, right? But what we're going to do is we want to be able to control our texture layer separately, and if you use this option, this is where we go through the process of converting a color layer into a high pass and then using the blend mode overlay to change it back into the texture layer, right? So we would have something like that, and we have our color layer here. It's not blurred out or anything as we would do in frequency separation. What is happening here is I want to apply a filter called Portraiture from Imaginomic, right? And what it does is it smoothens out everything completely. It's insane, right? When I apply it, it looks something like this. Let me take the texture off and see what I'm talking about. It's just like going through the same process of doing frequency separation. By this time, it's giving you some sort of skin smoothing. That is what I want. I'm not going to apply everything to the entire image. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mask it out with a black mask. So when I hold down Option or Alt and click the Add Layer Mask icon, it's just going to add a black mask to it, and it's taking everything out. This is what we want. And now I'm going to go to my brush tool with a soft brush. I'm just going to make sure my opacity is all the way to 100, and then flow is around somewhere at 80. I don't want to go all the way to 100. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this smoothing layer to just blend my gutters all together. What do I mean by that? Now when I go up in here and I apply the smoothing here, it's just going to ruin my texture and everything that I've created, even though I have the sharpen layer at the top here, still keeping some of them intact. I just want to use that layer to blend places like this, right? This gutter here where extreme shadows meet extreme whites, so that they can further be transitioned smoothly, if I may. Okay, so with that said, I'm just going to go in and start blending some of these guys up. Okay, I'm not going through doing it over the entire skin. I'm just doing it over places where the shadows meets the highlights. Okay, so something like this, an area like this bridge over here is perfect for this. Okay, because I cannot always go inside there with dodging and burning to just make it. It's just gonna ruin it. With this way, it is faster. I don't have to worry about ruining the photo. It's just gonna blend it all in. I'm not gonna go over places where it's good. I'm just blending these areas in, places like this, right? I just want to be able to blend them in a lot better, so that this transition from that part to the next part is invincible. Okay, that makes our edit more smooth. It's something like this. It's only the junction where they meet, or the gutter where they meet. I'll just go over them and blend them a lot more like this. All right, back it up, see what you're doing. I think this area will need a little bit. You can still just go ahead and use this plugin if you have it for your overall retouch, right? You can use it, but what I prefer to use it, and I know the instances of how I use it is not the way it's intended for, but it helps with what I'm doing, and it saves me time rather than me using dodging and burning. Okay, so I'm just going to apply to areas where the transition is very huge and sharp, right? And just blend those in a lot more like this. I'm not looking to overdo the edit that I've done. I'm just trying to blend those angles in, right? Something like this. Back it up and see what I'm doing. An area like this, we use it. Okay, somewhere here. Back it up again. A gutter like this can use it, so let's use it there. Just like this can use it. Back it up. Now you can see that there's a section of lighter tones here as compared to those at the bottom here. So where they meet is where I'm gonna go, right? Then just blend them in. Because if I just go over in their entire face, it's just gonna smoothen out everything, and I'm gonna lose the realism of it. Okay, so we're trying to avoid that by going over everything. So we just go and just tackle the gutters like I said, and then I'll do the same thing for this side where light meets shadow. We just do that and we'll blend them in a lot more. I think that's just about it. Back it up a bit. Let's add some more to this side here like that. And I think it can also affect the lips, right? The way the Portraiture filter here, or extensions or plugin or whatever here is set up, is to affect anything that looks like a skin tone. Okay, so it's not going to affect areas like this where we have this cyan and this extreme reds here, but it's going to affect things that are closer to our skin tone. So that are places like the lips, because the hues are not so much different. Okay, so I can apply that here and get my lips to look a little bit more smooth. Okay, something like that. Yep, just blend the junctions in a lot more and not overdo it. Okay, something like this. Now if you zoom out, you can actually see how these transitions are happening, and you can tackle them as well. So area like this, I'll just go in and just, you know, tackle them too as well. I think we're about where we can call it okay-ish. Great. I think I like where this is at. Let me see. Beautiful. We still have our textures intact. Nothing is completely ruined, right? Textures are there. So that's fun. All right, that'll be for polishing, and I'm gonna move to adding depth. Based on how we created our base look in Lightroom, I think this next part is where you can see it truly come alive. We're still gonna stamp our layer to the top by hitting Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift on Windows and E. When you do that, it's gonna stamp everything that we've done at the top. And what we wanna do is we wanna blur, add a ton of blur to this image here. So I'm gonna go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I usually like for my blur to be between the ranges of 70 to 75. This part is okay. Hit okay. Good. Now, this is where the magic happens, okay? We are going to use our blend modes. When we go into our blend modes, all of these here can actually create a unique look, okay? Because of how much we blend our layer. You can also have it not blurred and still apply it onto it, but what you're going to have is some really sharp transitions or some extreme blending that is going on here. But what we want is we want to blur our layer, right, and have those transitions be more smooth. Okay, that is why we blurred it this much. So what I'm going to do is just set my blend mode to soft light. And you can see that with soft light, what is happening is our blur is affecting most of the darker areas as compared to the lighter areas. What we're going to do next is just set our opacity a little bit low. Okay, and I've worked with this enough that most of the time with the range of blur I set for my Gaussian blur, 28 or 27-ish kind of work for every portrait I've worked with. surprisingly, to be honest. So I'll play with it around 25-ish, whilst paying attention to the darker areas, because the more you go to the extreme side, what you're having is just a spilled scene right here. Okay, it's not looking good. You can also achieve some sort of cool effects like some of these mist filters by using screen. Okay, and then you can dial it back down to have something that is like very dreamy or blurry light. I don't know, but yeah, screen can give you that, and even lighting, right? But what we are looking for is just soft light it and back it up a little bit or back it down. Most of it is going to be controlled by the shadows though. Let's keep it around here. Let's do before, after. What you can also see that is that it has added saturation to our photo. Okay, and that is what we actually want. Let's back it down a little bit. I think somewhere around the 20, 29 should be okay. Let's see. Yeah, I like this. Not too much, because adding saturation should be done separately. Okay, it is what we have. This is before, after, before, after, and we've added some sort of like depth to the whole image. Now moving on, we're going to pre-grade it a little bit by going into our adjustments and selecting selective color. This is how I grade my photos at all times. Now bear it in mind, okay, right from our base look, we have to do everything that is in line with that. We are not going to go to the extreme and just change the overall look, because it can easily break your image. Okay, so what I want to do here is just maintain the hues and the saturation and the look we already have, and then just add to it a little bit. Okay, if I have to change the luminance of how a certain hue look, that would be great. But other than that, I'm not gonna change the base look that we have over here. That is why we set those first. Sometimes it can completely change if the vision changes, but in this case, I like where this is going and I'm going to maintain that, right? And also I like to zoom my images up a little bit to this part. I can have it here if I'm trying to check for artifacting or anything, but other than that, I have it around, you know, I don't know, let's see, I think when I go to, just a sec, it should be in Navigator. Yeah, somewhere around this 33.3%, right? Then I can be able to see the overall image and how the grid is happening or going, and I can be able to make changes as such. Okay, but if you zoom in all the way here, you can be affected certain colors, but you're not seeing everything as a whole, so you may eventually make a mistake. Okay, so we'll keep it right here and then start. Now we're going to deal with the rest, go through it and identify the colors we can find here, and then adjust them using each tab that we have over here. So first is our reds. So I'm just going to back my reds. If I back my red to the right side in the cyan part, it adds greenish tones to it, and it's going to change the hue and add more red tones when I back it up this way. Okay, so this is just a try and error, right? Sometimes you can take breaks from your editing and be able to rest your eyes so that you can see the changes that happen. So usually when I get to points like this, I'll take a walk, go drink water, stretch a bit, and just rest my eyes and come back up again so that I can see everything clearly. But in this case, we're not going to do that. So let's just jump right into it. So with that said, I like more of the greenish tones in my image, and I also like to maintain how much red I have in the image too as well. So what I'm going to do is just back it up to the right side, just paying attention to how it is working the entire image, not too much. I'm going to try to park it around somewhere here. If you go extreme, you're going to have something that is breaking up the whole entire image. Also, you can actually do some selections for the skin. Okay, you can select the face, use mask to affect them separately, right? You can do that, but in this case I like to just work on the entire image as a whole. I know how to control them and do something that is not really going to break the entire image. But you can be non-destructive and just select only the face or the neck, any skin part, and then have them on one layer. You can also go up ahead and just create another selective color layer to adjust what is in the background. If you have a lot of stuff in the background, like a whole wide shot, you can do that. And you can also make different selections for the clothes and everything that you have in there so that you work non-destructively. But in this case, we're just going to use one selective color to just apply on everything. So this is an extreme edit I would do, but we'll back it up a little bit like here. Okay, I'm going to keep it around here. right? I'm gonna go to my magentas. If I go to the right, it's gonna add more. I like to balance it and introduce more green to my image. So I back it right here. Yellow is just gonna make all the reds more yellowish. So I just keep it here, right? And go back to my cyan again and shift it more to the right side, introducing more greens. Let's see before, after, right? So now when we look at our reds, okay, in here, you can actually see an ellipse and everything that is below here. That when we turn it back on, they become a bit dull, you know, a lot more filmic, right? If you have it off, it looks more digital, but when we have it on, you're gonna see that it's more dull and deeper, which we're even gonna control further, right? Next, we can adjust how the shading looks by adding black, okay? The thing with selective color when it comes to selecting reds is that it's more or less on the relative side. It's not absolute. What do I mean by that? If I select the black to add more blacks to it, you can see that it's even affecting her cheeks, right? And some part of the face. Okay, if I zoom in, let's start with the face. If I go in there and I just try to back it up this way, see? It's even affecting some of the hues in the face because the selection here for reds is not absolute. It's relative to everything that has some red in them. So it's just gonna affect everything with some level of red in them, okay? So that's where we have to be careful. But when we move on to Lightroom, you're gonna see that the separation in Lightroom is way, way better than what Photoshop provides. Okay, so in here, you have to be careful to not affect the face. You can actually add a lot and then go back and then max it out. But I think that is just adding so much to it. But what I like to do is just add a little bit first, okay? This can increase separation later. That when we get into Lightroom will be able to select them absolutely, and then we can work on them separately without affecting the skin. All right, so I'm just gonna add just a little bit, somewhere around like +5. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Let's move into yellows. You're gonna do the same. Back in it here, it means we're gonna add more green to it. We don't wanna affect it entirely and then ruin our skin tone. Okay, so I'm paying much attention to my skin tone as I do that, right? Somewhere around here is okay. Just one. If we add a bit of magenta, the skin starts popping up, but I still want that greenish look to it. So I'll back it up a little bit. Right, let's see. If you even go to the extreme, we're gonna ruin it. So just a little bit, not too much, somewhere around 2 is okay. Before, after, I like it. All right, if we should add yellows to yellows, our yellows become more, and that's not what we're looking for. So I'll back it out a little bit. I'll add a bit of yellows. Actually, I really don't like to add yellows to yellows because it makes the skin tone look sickly. Okay, I see if the subject is sick looking, right? I don't like it at all, so I barely add it. But what I would add is just dial my yellows down a little bit with the black, so shade it up a bit, something like this. All right, we do before, after, before, after. All right, move on to our greens. Let's see if there are some greens in there. Yes, there are. So we'll play with our greens a little bit. There's separation there, see, from before. So we can be able to control them separately to give us a unique look. But in here, less is more, okay? So I just look at the whole image. When I go here, it's just like a passport photo, and that's not what we're working for. So let's back it down a little bit, add a bit of style to it, okay? We'll pack it around here. Let's see what magenta is gonna give. Cool. Not cool. We're gonna leave it where it is. Yellow. I like what yellow is giving me, so I'm gonna pack it around somewhere here. Right? Good. And then if we darken it, it's gonna darken it more in the background like that. But with the darkening of the background, we'll have to use max for that, so I'm not gonna touch this one. Let's keep it here. Okay? Great. Let's move through the other one. Touch on cyan. Let's keep it around here. And let's keep it around here. Let's just keep it as it was. We're not gonna darken it a little bit. We're gonna darken it a little bit. Before, after. Before, after. We haven't done much. Let's desaturate a few things a little bit. Now we're not gonna do blues. There are no blues, so the bigger change, right, happens with neutrals, right? We have the whites, the neutrals, and the blacks. The neutrals are only going to affect the midtones with the photo. So that is where I purposely do my grade. I'm not going to touch the blacks because I want to keep my blacks black. When I do this, you know, we're ruining everything. That's not what we're looking for. If you want to do any sort of split tone effect, you can use that, but I don't touch my blacks, I don't touch my whites. The whites have the same effect by inverse, so I'm going to keep it on neutrals and then still pushing some greens, right? Here's what we're going to get. Can go back here and we're going for that beauty shot look. That's not what I'm going for. So I'm going to add a little bit of what? Cyan to it. Back it up a bit and bring it back somewhere right here. Go to my magenta. Yeah, we're not gonna add much. Let's keep it right here. And then our yellows. Ooh, this could be something, but you know, not in our case. I'll keep it right here. Let me see. Before, after. Before, after. Let's go back to our neutrals and bring it back a little bit. So I'm around 2-ish. Okay. Before, after. I like this. Then we can shade it up a little bit with black, but it's not giving us the look that I want. Great. That would be just about that. But that would be just that. So we will end the grade there, right? The next thing I want to do is add a little bit of lens distortion. In the case chromatic aberration. I have mine set up as actions, which I'll make a separate video on how you can also set yours up. I wish that Photoshop had some sort of like filter for you to apply chromatic aberration easily, but to set this one up, we'd have to use our channels and just, you know, control it a certain way. Okay, we're gonna control all of these changes as actions. So let's go back to our layer. I have my setup red, cyan, green, purple, and yellow, blue. So I'm just gonna hit 4%. Right, and when you go in, if I do it before, let's zoom in closer to the edge of the photo. Somewhere right here, look at this part. Before, after, before, after. It shifts everything up a bit. But there's also other things to note. What it is shifting is not just the edges, but the entire photo in one direction, okay? The textures that you have are not gonna be looking right, especially the eyes, okay? So sometimes I wanna take some of these things out from the eyes, but the lips, the edges, sometimes it's quite okay. So what I'll do now is just add a max to it, and then with a brush, opacity around 100, the flow the same, right? I'm going to change my color to black and then paint on a white layer to take it out from the eyes a little bit so that my eyes can be sharper, right? Not the entire photo, but just the eyes. And then I'll select my layer and then back the opacity off just a little bit, right? Good. Now it pushed all this aberration 4 pixels, right? I can also add some more again, 4 more pixels, right? And you can go about to do the same, but what this is everything I already have set up here. If I run this action again, it's just going to duplicate it so that I don't have to create a max and everything again. So I'll just click aberration and it's just going to duplicate this one again with all of the selection that I've already done. Okay, good. So we already have the aberration on. We've seen that, but it's not necessary. Let's take it off and let's keep this one on this way. So it's going to add a little bit of look to our image and give us something very unique. Okay, next up, I am going to stamp everything at the top again. Command Option Shift E or Control Alt Shift E on Windows, and I'm going to take my ellipse tool and select the face. Something like that, right? Now I just want to add a bit of focus to the face by selecting the face, going to select, modify, feather it out a bunch. I'm going to feather it out 1000 pixels, right? It's going to shrink our selection down, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and then hit my Layer Max tool, and it's going to add, it's going to add this mask over here, right? When we hold down Alt and click on the max, everything in white is going to be affected. Everything that is leading towards black is not going to be affected. In this case, we're not having pure black, so everything is going to be affected, but not as much as compared to the extreme white areas. Okay, so I'm going to hit it again, alt click. I'm going to bring this one back. What I'm going to do is just select my photo, not the mask. I'm going to select my photo, go to filter, blur, lens blur, and I'm just going to add a ton of blur. Radius is at 63, iris is just here. You can choose any that you want and then plug it in. But what I like to do is just add more, and I can control it when I get back in the layer. So I just hit OK, and it's just going to apply it, and this is what we have, right? It does blur everything according to what the selection of the max here stated. So everything at the extreme end here is pure white, right? Those are going to be affected 100% with the amount of blur that we added earlier, and those in the center part here, like her face, is going to be affected a little bit because of the black shading in there. Okay, so what I want to do is I also like to take it out of the eyes because I still want to keep the eyes sharp. So I'm just going to wipe it out a little bit like that. Sometimes I like to take the lips also out and take the nose bridge also out because they all fall on the same plane. Okay, and I'm just going to shade some of the eyebrow out this way. And I'm just going to go back to it, select the blur layer or the actual photo, and then back it down. Okay, what we have in it, everything on the extreme hand in the white area is going to be blurred. And when it gets closer to where the eyes is smoothing, or there's transitioning, that is much smoother. Okay, so we can back it down a lot more so that we can actually be focused on the face, something like this. And I think that's it. Okay, now if you followed my previous video on how to edit a photo set, all the changes that we've applied here, you'd want to apply it to those photos in the set to speed up your workflow so that you don't actually go through the same process of recreating all the grade here and all of these adjustments and this curve adjustments that you have over here. What I usually like to do is I'll stamp everything back up to lock it in. I'm not going to touch this layer again. And I'm just going to go in below and delete everything that is not necessary. One of those things is going to be this layer, right? I usually start from the top down, so I know this I can easily create because all the images that we're going to create are going to be different. Sometimes you're going to have the models facing a different direction, so with the lens blur and everything else, I can recreate it. So that is going to be deleted. The lens distortion or chromatic aberration is also going to be deleted because the model might be facing differently, so it's also going to go. What I'm going to keep is the grade because it has to be consistent across all the photos in the set, so I'll keep that. The depth layer, right, where we change our blend mode with the blur layer, it's also going to go. It's also easy, but I would have to pay attention to how much of the opacity that was here. Okay, sometimes if it's confusion, I'll keep it and keep the number there, and I will not delete it. But in this case, I'll just read the number. And if you're editing multiple photos, by the time you get to your third photo, all of these numbers here, you're going to remember them, so you'd have to delete them this way, right? The sharpen layer is going to be deleted. I don't need the smoothing layer. Curves, I'm going to leave because if they were all shot like this one, for instance, in the studio, then I think the lighting that is going to come is going to be the same across all the entire photo. So I'm also going to leave this one, right? And then this is going to go, this is going to go, and then this is going to go. And I just delete everything. So I will save this as my hero shot, right? And then anytime I'm editing any photo in a set in Photoshop, I have this one open on the side, and then if I get to the part where I'm supposed to do the polishing, I can just click and drag this one to the next photo and just do my polishing. If I have to do the grade, I don't have to recreate this all again. I'll just have to pick and drag it and apply it to the next photo, and then it's a lot faster. Okay, so I would save this hero shot as a TIFF file that is dynamically going to go back into Lightroom. Okay, so in that case, everything that we have here will still be saved as layers. So anytime I even close Photoshop, I can select my photo from Lightroom and then show in Finder, copy the photo and just open it up in Photoshop, and I'm still gonna have all my layers to use later when I need. Okay, so I think it's okay for us to stop here. In our next video, we're gonna use some masks to shape our light. We're gonna add some finishing touches to our overall grade. Also, if you want to go back to some of the videos that got us here, some of the things that we did in our previous videos, all of those are pinned in the description below, so you can check them out. Other than that, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.